Hello, everybody. It is Rotoworld Draft Week. I am Patrick Daugherty here to do a PPR mock draft with some of my best friends, some of my worst enemies, Denny Carter, some of the site's best friends, all of our best writers. We got myself, Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorak, Lawrence Jackson, Eric Samulski, Zach Kruger, Mark Garcia, some old friends, John Daigle, Scott Pianowski, Ian Harditz, a really great gang of people. They're going to be cycling in and out and joining us. It's a PPR draft, but there's a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receiver, tight end, 2 flex. We're not doing kicker or defense tonight. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in a mock draft, it's not fun to draft a kicker and a defense in a real draft. In a mock draft, I'll just be honest. John Daigle said he wouldn't do it if we drafted a kicker and a defense. So no kicker and defense, 6 bench spots, which a lot of leagues only have 5. Some only have 4. If it's a deeper league, but kind of want people to show off, some of the sleepers they're targeting late, and it's more fun to see people sleepers than a kicker and a defense. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun. It's draft weekend, by the way, and there's never been a better time to buy the Rotoworld Draft Guide. It's your last chance, really, since it's this weekend. The Rotoworld Draft Guide has been here. We've got drafts all week long, articles and more from your favorite Rotoworld talent and special guests. Get all you need to dominate your upcoming fantasy drafts. Go to NBCSports.com/fantasy to see the schedule of all those happening this week and use promo code CHAMP2023 to save 20% at checkout and receive a $10 Fanatics gift card. That is NBCSports.com/fantasy. Also NBCSports.com/draft guide. But that's enough of an intro. You already know me. I'm Pat. Let's welcome in John Daigle, friend, former coworker, Ian Harditz, friend, former coworker, and Kyle Dvorak, friend, and soon-to-be former coworker if he has a better draft than me. Start with John. How are you doing? I see you wearing some contraband NBC swag. You were supposed to return that when you left.
Yeah, this time of the year, it's all about bits. And so I figured if I show up I wonder how long it would take until someone noticed what shirt I was wearing. But it's still my most comfortable golf shirt. So thank you, Ron, wherever you are out there. I appreciate the gear.
Ian, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us. And again, you and John Daigle are old friends. I remember we used to work in the office. We have very fond memories of these days. How you doing right now over at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life?
A couple of late nights at that hotel bar in Stanford, man. Always a fun time over there. But yeah, things are great. Still working on redecorating the new office, as you guys can all see. But Pat, just bravo on the entire kicker and defense section there. You didn't completely dismiss him, but you made your point clear. You got there, you covered it. Just bravo, man. Kings stay kings, and you proved that tonight.
It would also be really insulting because we've all got our waves. Like I'm on with you guys, and then we have our other writers coming on. Imagine being on the final wave where like, hey guys, I'm on the kicker and defense wave talking about my picks there, where like we all get to talk about like we want Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, and then we have to punt that off to them.
Listen, with the kicker and defenses, even in mock drafts, you can sometimes make some points. Like I'm drafting this kicker because I'm really high, and the Jets offense this year is taking a big step forward. Last year, people would show off, I'm really high on the Lions. They're my step forward offense this year, even though I don't think they even had like a kicker in week 1. They had like 3 different kickers last year. Our defenses, you can use them to show off your early season, like schedule knowledge, but that's boring. And we're not going to do that. And now the draft is rolling. Our own Zach Kruger is on the clock.
I'm not even going to lie to you, Pat. I've been drafting either Justin Tucker or Evan McPherson in every league because after 6 kickers, I'm really not sure who plays for which team. So I just take the 2 guys I know in every kicker league.
So you take them before
eliminating them.
You take them before the last 2 rounds, Daigle? That's insanity.
To be fair,
I respect Daigle's point though, because he's doing zero avoidance. Because a lot of the sites will just have them listed, even if they're like free agents, if they just got cut. And I don't know, like, dude, I didn't know Brett Maher wasn't going to be the starting kicker because apparently Sean Payton has a thing for Will Lutz. Like, how was I supposed to know that? So zero avoidance, jump 1 pick.
Daigle will laugh at this. I'm down extraordinarily bad in my distance scoring league because they had distance field goals, and Brett Maher felt like a cheat code. But Daigle too, he's gambling. Can Evan McPherson bounce back? This is what people are wondering. But people are wondering who went first. It was Justin Jefferson. Then it was Christian McCaffrey to Denny. Is Denny okay? He took Christian McCaffrey.
Someone put eyes on Denny. This is bad.
That actually is bad. He might not be here.
What happened?
Scott Pianowski took Jamar Chase. Eric Samulski took Cooper Kupp. Lawrence Jackson took Travis Kelce. I'm now on the clock, and Tyreek Hill. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill at 6 overall because I would maybe take Tyreek Hill at number 2 overall. How do you guys feel about that take, by the way?
Probably 3, but two's just spicy enough in August to get away with it.
Where do you guys fall on Cooper Kupp versus Tyreek Hill? I feel like that is the debate that constantly comes up with Tyreek Hill. Do you want to bet on Tyreek Hill or do you want to bet on Cooper Kupp coming back and having like 170 targets again?
Oh, I've been Team Cooper Kupp all offseason. He's my number 2 player over Jamar Chase. Again, in the 8 games he played with Stafford, he led every receiver in points per game, 20.3. And add that 9th game in when he didn't play with Stafford, he was still ahead of Justin Jefferson as the wide receiver 1 in points per game, led all wide receivers in target share, 33.3%. And quietly, the sneaky part about Cooper Kupp's outlook is that the Rams defense, 71% of their roster is rookies. They're going to have nothing but play volume. Last year, Sean McVay offense was his first to average less than 60 plays per game. They averaged 58.5. It was his first offense to average less than a 60% pass play rate from neutral game script. So we're going to get all this volume. Cooper Kupp is a 210 target guy easily this year.
Oh, wow. Has there ever been a 200 target? Has there ever been a 200 target?
No.
Did Calvin Johnson get there?
No one's gotten to 200.
You ain't got there garbage time.
But Daigle, another thing about the Rams defense.
Calvin had 204. F you, Kyle. 204 in 2012.
204?
It's 16 games in that
Kyle, I forgot to inform you, by the way, if you lose a debate on the show, you are fired.
I thought my time was coming. Look, I had a good run.
It's never happened.
Pack your bags. It's never happened. It was a fiction. You know what was a fiction, by the way, is Bijan Robinson falling to number 10 overall to Ian
That'll
Hartitz.
play.
Ian, was that just like smash the draft button? Like, was there any thought that even had to go into that?
Stephon Diggs right there. Just a matter of, could I get a Nick Chubb at the, next turn here and maybe just take the best wide receiver available because it's a little bit of a drop-off. But you know what? A little bit of a drop-off from Bijan, I think, to the rest of the crew as well. So we'll see if he can climb up that depth chart. number 3 behind my guy, CPAT and Algier right now, unofficially. But yeah, man, I'll take the guy that's generational according to all the draft pundits.
And according to you, and who are you taking with your second pick here? Best receiver on the board, I take it?
You know what? Normally I take Davante Adams, but I'm representing Team Fantasy Life. Matthew Berry's ride or die. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's go.
Do you get a residual for that pick, by the way?
I wish, man. I wish.
No, he's like the definition of safe volume there.
I thought about going Adams, man, because I think I do have Adams ranked higher. But you know what? That's why you should be doing drafts like this. It actually forces you to go ahead and make that pick. And who's the better real-life receiver? I still think Davante Adams. But, man, I guess Jimmy G versus Jared Goff isn't the best thing either. But, man, we're talking about Cooper Kupp having 200-plus targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 200-plus targets as well. Why not, Kyle? Why not?
Well, Kyle started with A.J. Brown. He then took Davante Adams, who I feel like people truly – I'm not even saying this is a trope – like don't want to talk about the fact that Davante Adams could still easily finish as the wide receiver 1 overall. Yeah. Like, Kyle, do you think that's in his range of outcomes, or do you think that at 2.7 or whatever you were, you can't not do it even if you don't think he has that kind of upside anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's almost like the Kelsey thing where you talk about like, oh, can this guy finish the tight end 1? No, they can't beat Kelsey. I don't think a lot of guys can beat Jefferson. And if someone is going to do it, it's going to be Kupp, Chase Hill with almost out of doubt. Now, could Davante? I think Davante's probably the best bet to at least jump into that top 3, that top 4 mix. I'm not sure I see a lot of strong bets for wide receiver 1 outside, but in the middle of the second round in a full PPR 2 flex league, like Davante Adams, like windmill, like easy, even if I don't think he finishes the 1, which I guess is not impossible. He could be the 200.
He could easily do it. Yes, Davante Adams could be the 200 target guy.
Did the finger slip, Daigle? That was not optimal.
Was I on the wait for Andrews? No, that's fine.
No, so Daigle, do you want to be this? It's fine, but do you want to be excommunicated from the fantasy industry? You did not take a receiver with your first 2 picks. Please tell us your picks and explain yourself.
It's not fun.
Davante Adams wasn't there, and I figured Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, or T. Higgins would come back to me. So that's kind of all it is. Plus, when you looked at all the running backs, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ramondre Stevenson, it's just like, yeah, one of them comes back to me. So I'm just playing tiers.
So Daigle started with Austin Eckler, then he went to Mark Andrews. I took Josh Jacobs then over Derrick Henry. Am I getting too cute? And why? Is there some reason why even after he has now signed and reported – I keep drafting Josh Jacobs when all the smart people told me Josh Jacobs in the 3rd. That's amazing. Josh Jacobs in the 2nd. Turn in your badge and gun.
Bro, give me Jacobs. The worst thing people can say is these arbitrary touch studies from, guys, and they include the Zeke suspension year, the Le'Veon Bell holdout year, and then you have like a 7-year sample size. Like Josh Jacobs is in an offense that we know is going to give him more volume than just about anyone. He's really good at football. And like, what more is there at this point? They even gave him the extra incentive money. So now we don't have to worry about like the Jonathan Taylor sort of situation where you just wonder if like the first nick or bruise he gets, it's just going to be a situation where he sits down on the bench. So I'm with you, man. I think after Jacobs is really the cutoff where then I wait until round 3. For me, Jacobs getting extra security, man. Mid round 2, I'm there. I'm starting to take over Mark Andrews. Come on.
You just talked about. I'm gonna have Daigle explain Mark Andrews here in just a second, but you were just talking about like some of those famous like legendary touch seasons where the players fell off the next year, frequently with extenuating circumstances like a holdout, like you said. But then I just took Josh Jacobs and I immediately hearkened back to, oh yeah, DeMarco Murray, and I was all in on DeMarco Murray the year after his monster touch season because the industry was off. So like the touches, like that's bad, that's a red flag, and he changed teams too. That was probably the bigger red flag. But I'm like, no, the industry has psyched itself out on DeMarco Murray. I'm taking him in literally every draft, and I have just now returned my bank account to the black from doing that. So, but yeah, Daigle, they're giving you a really hard time for taking Mark Andrews in the second. I know Denny Carter loves Mark Andrews in the second. Why do you love Mark Andrews in the second?
I'm just playing a different game, apparently. Everyone is citing Josh Jacobs like player usage when I look and I say, well, he was only the 5th running back to have over 390 touches in the last decade, so I'm taking touches away. I'm not betting on that anomaly rate. And it's the same thing as trying to bring Travis Kelce back to earth. Since Kelce was only the 9th time since 2008, a tight end averaged over 15 points per game. We definitely do not think it will happen again. Maybe Kelce jams that in my face and it doesn't matter. But again, we're playing a game, and I want to bet against that historical anomaly. And so if Kelce is just normal, if he comes back to earth, then you can say who then creates like a separation of that position. And Mark Andrews very clearly, since he was already tied in 2 in points per game, 11.8 per game, and the 11 starts he made with Lamar Jackson last year.
So now tell us, you're finally taking a receiver now to pair with Austin Eckler and Mark Andrews, correct? Or do you want to take this all the way? Do you want to go all the way? And do you want to basically align yourself as the diametrically opposed pole to Denny C.D. Carter?
I am going to go tier drafting again, and I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs, and then I'll let all these guys who are all the same fall back to me.
Man, this feels the
next 12
personal.
Receivers are all the same, and no one can say otherwise.
Was Calvin Ridley part of that? Because my addiction to taking Josh Jacobs has turned into a secondary addiction of taking Calvin Ridley, because I always keep missing out on receivers in the second round. So in the third, I'm like got receiver thirst. I'm like, Calvin Ridley, man. Like, I know I'm just like, my whole Calvin Ridley case is like not based on anything. Like, it's not based on like stats or analytics. It's just about he's got unknown upside. I want the unknown upside. But I know there are more intelligent cases to be made than that for Calvin Ridley.
I think it's fine, personally. I really think his draft stock is just bolstered because of preseason usage, whatever the hell we think of that. If he doesn't catch that one deep ball, I do wonder where he'd be going. And so I think it's kind of easy to ignore that more than anything. But if people want to put Calvin Ridley like over Deebo Samuel, over DK Metcalf, that's fine. I have no problem with it.
Kyle, Daigle refuses to draft a receiver. You just draft your third. Deebo Samuel. We think the rushing ship has sailed. Why are you comfortable with Deebo Samuel in the third? Are you confident that he's going to outproduce Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, I'd be confident in him out-targeting Brandon Ayuk. We've seen in the past when this offense is at his best, he truly is capable of being a team's number one receiver. Like, I think the rare thing where we see a wide receiver who gets carries and you say like, oh, but is he really a wide receiver one? But in the not so distant past, he has truly been like leading the team in air yards, leading the team in targets. And I think it's fair to say that he's probably not the highest target ceiling of guys who go in the third round. Like, I'm okay with that. He's my third receiver. I'll probably eat some pretty middling weeks. And I'm also going to have some weeks where the offense nukes and it runs through Deebo, because this offense does that. It produces a ton of points. It gets its best players in space and gets them the ball. Like, yeah, I might have some slightly disappointing weeks. It's the same thing with Kittle. Like, there will be disappointing weeks along the way, but there will be weeks where if you played against Deebo Samuel, you lost.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown, Bijan Robinson, Ramondre Stevenson, you're back on the clock for your fourth pick. Just take us through the thought process. Who's going to be the fourth pick?
Already made it, man. Joe Mixon. The smartest thing John Daigle said all night was thankfully finally pointing out that after the first 16 wide receivers are off the board, really, man, you do get deep into that even wide receiver 3 range with the Tampa Bay guys and Marquise Brown. And sure, we all have the guys we prefer, the Debos, maybe Keenan Allen, maybe DJ Moore, but there's one bright red flag for every single one of these guys pretty much. So more and more, man, especially still being able to now get Ramondre at the end of round 3, thanks to a Zeke signing that I don't think is going to make all that much difference. Joe Mixon, early round 4, someone that by the time week 1 comes around and we know he's on the football field, is going to be right back into a weekly top 12 running back. I'm just happy to have my 3 workhorses right here, and I think the wide receiver tier is long enough that I'm still going to come away with some dogs in the next 3-4 rounds.
Daigle, I thought I saw you with a counterpoint on the tip of your tongue, but well, now you're on the clock. Oh, well, you were on the clock. You smashed the draft
pick, Daigle.
As Ian and I were saying, I have like 9 guys started because they're all the same. So now I'm just going and sifting through my rankings and picking them.
Deontay was great there. You're coming on, Daigle. Look, I'm cool with Mark Andrews, but he goes in round 3, not in the middle of round 2. That's my only issue.
I don't think he goes in round 3 sometimes. Maybe because I take him at the 2nd, 3rd round.
Yeah, I was going to say, Daigle's he's like, I've never seen a draft. He's always gone at my pick in the 2nd round.
I was all the way locked in on Christian Watson, who's a little bit lower in the Yahoo pre-rankings than he is in a lot of services, and some of like the ADP, especially the underdog ADP. Kyle took him. Then I was going to consider Deontay Johnson, who has been ascending in ADP, ascending in rankings. Then John Daigle took him. Now I'm going to take the final guy I had in my queue as I'm letting the clock drag down to taking Tyler Lockett, who, I mean, not an ideal 4th-round pick. First 3 or 4 rounds, I either went an immense usage floor or like a really high ceiling. Tyler Lockett, he's not a ceiling player. He is a floor player, but I don't know if he's a 4th-round floor pick. I feel like I want like a little bit higher floor from a 4th-round pick, but you guys talk about the receiver tier, like not really being this, like not being a huge difference between 14 and 30. I agree, but there is a huge ceiling difference, and I didn't get any of it with Tyler Lockett at all. And it was that horrible.
The JSN injury made DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett a little more comfortable, at least out the gates, a little bit easier.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we're already about to usher you guys out. Does anyone have any final thoughts? I don't know what's gotten into Denny. It's been 3 rounds. Denny's just trying to brand. It's been 3 rounds, and he only has 2 receivers. He's trying to get a bit. I know it is a new bit. I really think
I don't like this one.
Bit.
It's not as good.
It's not as good.
He got the Hurts Devontae stack. You got to respect that. But, Pat, the one thing I would say, again, with this long wide receiver tier and having kind of Fields already go, and I guess, Daigle taking Andrews, maybe you think Darren Waller can stand above. But to me, that's why I feel better taking the 3rd or 4th round QB some this year, because I don't think I'm necessarily leaving something in that round that I can't get later.
Yeah, I should have maybe just gone quarterback, one of like the top 5 or 6 big dogs. But I didn't do it. I took Tyler Lockett, and this team, thankfully, we're not playing this out. got Tyler Lockett.
What I also like about this long tier, as Ian said about wide receivers, that all of theirs, although they have red flags individually, all of their ceilings are higher than the running back tier, which is why also I don't mind getting running back early, as I did with Eckler and Gibbs, and then picking apart this tier because they have blemishes individually, but together, like as a big picture draft strategy, you want all these guys over all those running backs. That's, I think, the skeleton key of 2023.
Agreed.
Well, it feels way too soon to usher out 4 for 4's John Daigle, Fantasy Life's Ian Hartitz. But we got to go because we got to welcome in Scott Pianowski, Eric Samalski of Rotoworld, Lawrence Jackson of Rotoworld. Amazing drafters, amazing friends. Follow them on Twitter, read their work. But now we've got 3 more amazing drafters, 3 more amazing friends. Yahoo Scott Pianowski, Rotoworld's Lawrence Jackson, and Rotoworld's Eric Samalski. Let's begin. Are any of you tilting right now? Or are all of you happy?
I'm tilting. I'm in this draft right here. I got my other draft going on. So and I'm on the clock too. No, I'm on
the clock. I got 20 seconds left. I'm trying to figure it all out.
You're on the clock. All right.
Scott, how are you doing? You started Jamar Chase, who fell to you at 1-3, Derrick Henry, Amari Cooper, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, kind of like value receivers, but very high floor receivers with maybe new ceiling potential this year, and then TJ Hawkinson in the 5th. How are you feeling about your team so far?
Yeah, I wish I liked it more than I did. My ethos this year, if your league requires 3 starting receivers, I want you to walk out with the best receiver room in the league, and it's just hard to do it in this room because it's been prioritized by most of the room. So I think people are drafting whenever you have a room that's using your strategy, it makes you kind of nervous. I think I would also preferred McCaffrey at 3, and then I could just receiver, right? I mean, aren't we all nervous that this is the year that Derrick Henry slips in the banana peel? 29 is ancient for a running back. The longer I play fantasy, the more I want my teams to skew younger. For a long time, I was that boring, give me Anquan Bolden again, the Ibanez All-Stars in fantasy baseball. The longer I play, the more I want guys on the up escalator, not on the down escalator. So Henry makes me a little bit nervous, and this wide receiver heavy room is not the best room for me to draft in.
Well, it's funny you talk about Henry making you nervous because I felt like I had a fateful decision in the second round. It was Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs. And people have been talking all August about they love Josh Jacobs in the third. He's a dicier proposition in the second. But I went Josh Jacobs over Derrick Henry. And I feel like it's the kind of decision I'd be playing out in my mind all year if we were playing this league out. Thankfully, I feel like we're not doing that. I don't have to be haunted. But it's so weird. Like the generational players like Derrick Henry, they keep going and going and going. I still always want to be a year too early instead of a year too late.
Me too.
They just make a year too early take 4 years.
Let me also say about Jacobs, when you take a running back early in the draft, I think you have to tell yourself a story that you feel good about the pieces around him or the team's trajectory. And it's just and I'm not picking on you for taking Jacobs because I think he's perfectly reasonable in the second round.
No, please do pick him.
But the Raiders scare the crap out of me. And actually, another player who I've been afraid to take there is Davante Adams, who's been fantasy royalty. But I've been like, yeah, I'll be the guy who takes the helium on Garrett Wilson. I'll be the guy who takes the helium on Chris Olave. Maybe not over Adams directly, but here's the bottom line. I think Josh McDaniels as a head coach is a really good offensive coordinator. I don't think this thing is going to work out. I don't like their quarterbacks. It's at the point where I want Aiden O'Connell to play some, but the Raiders scare me. Anybody else?
Yes, they scare me to death. And Jonathan Taylor, I was almost about to hit click on Jonathan Taylor. I didn't. I went Mike Williams, who should maybe scare me to death. Lawrence, what are you gonna say about the?
I'm good on the. I'm fine with the Raiders and having Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs. They was bad last year, and Josh Jacobs had his best year, and Davante Adams had one of his best years. It's almost like a lateral move that they made at the quarterback position, going from Derek Carr to Jimmy G. So I mean, they won't be a 500 team, but that Josh Jacobs, especially now that he's like back and seems at least moderately happy, that he'll be able to produce in some fashion. Maybe not to the tune of another 1,600 yards. That's hard to do, but definitely 1,300 yards for him is easily in the realm of possibility again.
Lawrence,
I just wonder if Adams could get 180 targets again and into an age 31 season. That makes me a little bit nervous. But Davante Adams, we've done so much work about touchdowns are fluky and touchdown rates regress. When you score double-digit touchdowns as often as Davante Adams does, it's part of your profile. So I guess I'm playing both sides of this year. I'm not picking Adams, but I'm scared that he's going to dunk on me.
Yeah, Lawrence, everything in moderation, including happiness for Josh
moderation.
Jacobs. Yeah, I'd say everything in moderation but happiness. Eric Samolsky, one of the newest members of our team, he does baseball. He does a lot of football. He's going to be doing a lot of football for us this season, a lot of really unique content coming. He has started with Cooper Kupp, Chris Olave, Josh Allen, Dameon Pierce, Alexander Madison. Eric, how are you feeling?
I feel good up until the last one. I've been late on like the zero RB, hero RB trend in the sense of like I've been doing this since I was playing like on Small World before like ESPN had fantasy stuff. So it's sometimes hard to like break old habits, but I like how I started out. I kind of wish now that I'm seeing the backs that are out there that I had gone.
They just keep falling. I felt like I had to take a back last round, and I kind of like panic picked Mike Williams, but not all the backs I was considering are still going to be on the clock.
And I don't mind Alexander Madison as my RB2 in the fifth round. I think that we've seen flashes. I'm not consistently enough when he started for Dalvin Cook, but we've seen flashes that he can be a good, competent running back and a good fantasy running back. I'm happy to get the quarterback at the top of round 3, like we talked about. And I felt like that's really good value in that spot. And, I think Cooper Kupp in a PPR league, there's really nothing wrong with that at all. And I just think Dameon Pierce is continuing to be a little bit undervalued. As a Bills fan, I watched Devin Singletary a lot over the years, and he's not a pass catching back. I know that's like kind of the book on him, or at least that was the narrative, that he was going to do a lot of he was going to be in the receiving game, and Pierce was going to have a lot of the early downs. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like Pierce is going to have the vast majority of that backfield, and I think he's a talented player, and so I was stoked with him in the fourth.
I almost just ordered the Jonathan Taylor code red. I wanted to do it in round 4, and I kind of chickened out. I wanted to do it in round 5, and I decided, man, 4 games, essentially 33% of the fantasy regular season. Scott, you always have really interesting like macro thoughts on fantasy strategy. What do you do with Jonathan Taylor, who we know is missing 4 games? We know he could be a huge boon to your team mid-season and in the playoffs. But having him those first 4 games, the kind of draft capital you have to expend on him could cost you the playoffs. Just what are your macro thoughts on taking a player in Jonathan Taylor's situation?
I'm a big believer in I want to win September. I want to be one of the 4-1 teams, 5-1 teams where I can play. Then I can start thinking longer term. I know a lot of people right now are saying, oh, I got this team. It's going to dominate the fantasy playoffs. Look at my week 17 schedule. The NFL is such a snow globe league, and good defenses will go bad. Bad defenses will get better. A lot of plexiglass with that stuff. I'm not drafting Taylor unless I get a monumental discount. And also, I mean, Anthony Richardson, we know he's an athlete, but he didn't play a lot of quarterback in Florida. And 5 for 16 preseason game. I know there are a couple of drops in there, but I think there can be some tough sledding with this offense, and I don't want to draft into it. I'm going to have to be in a room that really doesn't believe in Jonathan Taylor before he ends up on my roster.
Scott, now you're now on the clock with 20 seconds remaining. You've got 3 receivers, like you said. You weren't ecstatic about your build. 3 receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. What are you thinking here with your 7th?
Yeah, I'm mad because this is my Jahan Dotson slot, and he went about 7 picks earlier. The Jahan Dotson was such a giveaway all summer, and that's over with now. Cam Akers, last quarter of the season, was running back 5 or 4, something like that. Not a lot of competition for the ball. I know the Rams aren't a great infrastructure, but it's the 6th round. You have to take some fleas on anybody you pick. Here's the thing, okay? You get one. Well, I love the hero RB build, assuming Henry can be my hero. You can take that second running back in so many different slots. You're going to be surprised. If you haven't drafted yet, people are watching the show, you're going to be just surprised how comfortable you are taking your second, third running backs, even if you wait, because what we'll accept from a second or third running back these days is so much less than it used to be. You used to need 2 bell cows to win your league. You don't need that anymore. So I'm happy to wait for my second back here. Akers, I'm fine with it. Even if he doesn't pan out, I'll probably get a third running back who's pretty good too. But again, this room was wide receiver heavy. I didn't get Dotson. I'm not going to have that 4th wide receiver I love. I'm not going to have the best wide receiver room in the league or anything close to it. So that's been frustrating for me.
You just made a really – you go, Eric.
I was going to say I second that. As somebody who did pick their second running back instead of a third wide receiver, and I'm looking at the board right now, and I wound up with Miles Sanders in a flex spot because there's just every wide receiver is gone. And the difference to me between guys like Miles Sanders and Alexander Madison and Cam Akers, it's just there's not a big gap there. And so to me, if I wait and if I hadn't taken Madison and I waited, 2 rounds later, I'm still getting a running back who's not all that less valuable. And I could have really kind of solidified my wide receiver group.
Just 2 really compelling points where, like Scott said, we've accepted our fate, like at the second running spot. Like you're not getting a bell cow with your second. And maybe if you do your first 2, you're getting 2 bell cows, but those days are gone where you can get a 3 down back in like the 5th or 6th round. That they're long gone. But I do think that like the running back, like say 16 to 32 range is a lot deeper than it's been the past 2 or 3 years. Where like offensive, like passing football, I think kind of finally peaked at the very end of like the Breeze, Brady, Ben Roethlisberger era. We're now, dealing with the 2 high safety national nightmare. Running back touches, I feel like are kind of creeping back up again. And I've been making this point several times. I don't know if everyone agrees with this, but I feel like the RB28 this year is better than the RB28 was like 2 or 3 years ago. And that there's just a lot. It's the running back dead zone, I guess, but they're not team killers. Maybe they're not league winners, but there's not many team killing running backs in that range, where in the past few years there had been. And I'm on the clock, and I'm ready to take one of these team-killing running backs. Right.
Yeah, I picked pretty quick there.
Yeah,
Jonathan Taylor is in the green room. He looks really sad.
Yeah,
Patrick. Can you
he
make
does.
him happy?
And I said there are no 3-down backs at this stage of the draft. I lied because I'm taking Rachaad White, who might be a 3-down back.
Yeah, I almost took him. I ended up taking Khalil Herbert, but it was between him and White.
Lawrence,
I think, is he the only guy who really benefits from Baker Mayfield at quarterback? Because I mean, Baker loves dumping off to the running backs, and I can't really get behind. I mean, I'll draft Godwin and Mike Evans if they fall. They're talented players, but obviously it's a major downgrade for them in who they're catching passes from.
I don't want the Tampa Bay receivers, and Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. Chris Godwin's a hell of a player. I think Baker could sink those guys, but I'm okay with White.
Scott, I think Evans and Chris Godwin are quarterback proof. Ellipses, except for Baker Mayfield.
They might be right. Well, also, what did Brady throw? Like 1,500 passes last year. I mean, they're going to lose 200 passes of volume.
Lawrence, you just bought the dip on Jerry Jeudy, a guy who's kind of been trying to hint that his hamstring injury is not as serious as we fear. A guy, what round did you get him in? Is this the 8th?
Yeah, 7th
right. Round? He was going in the 4th round 2 weeks ago. How do you think?
Right. Got him in round 7 right here. I'm banking on it being a game or two at worst. Had he got chosen before me, I just would have went with Cortland Sutton. I figured he'd have to be more involved this year in the offense too, but I'm cool with taking Jeudy, even though this is a 3 starting wide receiver league. I'll take him here, and I'll probably come back and go receiver as well if Jeudy does miss that first week or two. But overall, I'll struggle here probably with the receiver group, because that's what's going to happen when you get the Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes stack. You're going to pay for that somewhere else. So that's just the name of the game.
Lawrence, can I get you to comment on Michael Pittman? Obviously a talented player, but he's got a rookie quarterback. What were your thoughts when you took him?
Yeah. So I like Michael Pittman a lot more than the other people do. And if you've watched the preseason, you mentioned a couple of drop passes. It's actually a little more than that. And that's what we'll need more out of Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, right? We'll need more out of them two to, get closer to the ceiling for Anthony Richardson. But because of that, I could definitely see Michael Pittman surpassing his 141 targets last season, just because he's far and away clearly the best weapon on that team now. He's definitely it now because there's no Jonathan Taylor. So I just feel like he's going to get fed with so many targets that he could surpass his career highs of 141 targets and 99 catches.
It seems crazy on its face to think he could get even more targets than he did last year, but with Jonathan Taylor gone, with Shane Steichen coming from this very intelligent Eagles coaching tree, a team that they utilized they didn't try to square peg round holes. They utilized their talent the way it needed to be utilized in Philadelphia. They want to make life easy for Anthony Richardson, and it would seem a very easy way to make life easy for him would be a billion checkdowns to Michael Pittman. And I really could see that working out.
I mean, well, he throws it deep to Alec Pierce. He don't catch it. That's the deep ball guy right there. If he come down with it, we might be working with something. But yeah, he worked Michael Pittman a lot in the RPO game. Get him in there on those slants and whatnot. So that might be how they have to live, so we'll see.
8th round, I was agonizing between Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. I took Trevor Lawrence, who I think is the higher floor. I think maybe Tua's ultimate ceiling is higher, but I don't think it's higher enough than Trevor Lawrence's ceiling to choose Tua's floor over Trevor Lawrence's floor, if that makes sense. I think if I knew they were both going to stay healthy, I would probably still gamble on Tua in this Mike McDaniel system. I saw you nod your head, Scott. Do you approve of Trevor Lawrence over Tua?
I certainly would have taken him over Tua. As great as those two receivers are for Miami, if Ridley is ready to go, Ridley, Kirk, whatever Zay Jones is, Evan Ingram, a couple of decent backs, Doug Peterson infrastructure, and you don't have this anybody who takes Tua is just going to be nervous the whole season that he's going to get hurt again. So I think Lawrence has a better floor. I think both of them have similar upsides. If I was faced with those two guys, I would take Lawrence every time.
So we're in a receiver sicko league, Eric, and that results in Nico Collins in the 8th. You can make your other point first, and talk to us about Nico Collins.
Well, I was watching and hoping and just seeing Rashad Bateman get passed over pick after pick after pick, and then Lawrence decided he wanted to take him right before I went. But yeah, so Nico Collins is somebody who he's my backup option at this point, obviously. But I think that he's a talented player. I think that he really showed flashes last year with a much worse quarterback situation. I don't know what we're going to get from Stroud, obviously. There's going to be some rookie growing pains, but the target share, the role in the offense should be really good. In the preseason, it has looked like it's going to be really good. It's still a team that's probably going to be trailing and throwing a decent amount. And so, do I love that Nico Collins is my 3rd starting wide receiver in this league? No.
We're glad you're not pretending that you do.
Do I think that he's going to have a solid fantasy year? Sure. But I think Lawrence's pick is the one that, I'd love to hear his thoughts on. I know that he's a big Lamar guy this year, but I think everybody's talking about Zay Flowers and forgetting that Rashad Bateman is a really good football player.
Yeah, and he is. And I just realized that Odell Beckham is still on the board. That's who I actually would have preferred. So good thing this is a mock draft. But I'll say this though, in taking Rashad Bateman, no one knows who's going to be the leading receiver for the Ravens. In fact, there might not be any of them. They're all probably going to have their different weeks between Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, and Zay Flowers, and that's even going to be hard to try to detect because you still got Mark Andrews, who could he'll lead this team in targets once again. So getting one of the 3 Ravens wide receivers, they're all getting drafted in the same range anyway. When you draft one of the Ravens wide receivers, they're all good players, and you're just hoping you get the one that Lamar builds that chemistry with in the game. And I actually think of the wide receivers so far, it looks like he's built the best chemistry with Odell thus far. Again, they haven't played any games, but that's what it's been looking like, and that's what they've been saying.
Yeah, and just to piggyback what Lawrence was saying, the difficulty sometimes of knowing which receiver is the guy to have this week in Baltimore, that's all the more reason why I'm pounding the table and saying get the best receiver room you can, and why I've been so frustrated that I'm looking at the draft board. It's a sea of green. Green is the receiver color. I'm glad most of my rooms are not going to draft like this because this is a nightmare for me, right? You always worry that what if I go to eat blueberry pancakes at breakfast and everybody else orders blueberry pancakes and there's a run on them, but there never is. Somebody else orders an omelet, right? This is the blueberry pancake draft where I got hammered and I can't get the roster build I want because you don't want to in best ball when you don't have to guess when the week is coming. The wide receiver 44 is really valuable. He pops when he pops, and when he doesn't, somebody else picks up the slack. In managed leagues, you have to call the shot ahead of time. I don't want to do that with receivers. I want my receivers to start themselves.
The good news is you got Jamar Chase, so you did get your alpha lead, and you got Amari Cooper, Brandon. I think you're pretty set. Your top 3 receivers, and you felt questionable about Derrick Henry. I think you covered yourself with both touches and upside with Cam Akers, Khalil Herbert, and Brian Robinson. I actually really like your team so far, Scott. And
thank you.
I was going to give you a final word to say your team was good, but instead you were kind of not loving it, but I think it was good. The only bad news about having so many amazing drafters with us is that we got to usher some of them out and usher other ones in. Yahoo Scott Pianowski, thank you so much for joining us. Always amazing stuff. Lawrence Jackson, Lord Don't Lose, thank you so much for joining us. Eric Smolsky, it's going to be a great season. First season of Rotoworld. Thank you so much for joining us. Now we welcome in a different group. We welcome in Mark Garcia, who we like, Zach Kruger, who we like, and Denny Carter, who he still works here. And the infamous Denny Carter. He's still here. Hi, Denny. And we see you're starting a new bit, huh? You don't like receivers anymore all of a sudden, huh?
No, that's very last year, honestly.
What were your first 3 picks, Denny? Was it or what's going on? Why was it not receiver?
Well, I like to mix it up a little. I mean, when I have
you actually don't. You always just go receiver.
When I have the 102, I do in a PPR. I do feel compelled to take CMC. I mean, especially with Purdy starting, he's gonna see a million targets. So let's just. I know I'm ideological, but only to a point, and so I will take CMC. And then I stacked Hurts with Devontae Smith. I told you guys the other day I'm having trouble letting go of my best ball brain, and so I did that. I went Devontae Smith and Hurts, but I feel like you could do worse than having Hurts on your team. I don't know. I think it won't hurt me in the long run.
It will not hurt you in the long run. And it's still, I think quarterback is kind of deepening again a little bit, but there's still just a humongous tier separation. And you could argue where the tier separation occurs. Is it after the top 4? Is it after the top 5? Could maybe even be a big 6 with Lamar and Justin Herbert in there. But there is a tier separation. And you got one unquestionably. You got one.
I got Goddard. I got Goddard later.
Yeah, I was actually very extraordinarily upset about that.
My best, but I figured you would be. I did it specifically to make you mad.
Do that. We're going to welcome in Mark Garcia, who just took Tyler Higbee because Dallas Goedert's gone. So that was the last good tight ends. Now we have to start drafting bad tight ends like Tyler Higbee. No, a lot of people are interested in Tyler Higbee this year. Mark Garcia, you have Lamar Jackson, Garrett Wilson, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Tony Pollard. You took the Jonathan Taylor plunge. Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Gibson, and Tyler Higbee. How do you feel so far? Especially take us through maybe the Jonathan Taylor thought process. Why did you decide to be the guy who stopped the slide?
Yeah, I mean, in the 7th round at that point, it's a risk versus reward profile that is more weighted towards the upside than downside. And obviously, I mean, talking best ball, we were just talking best ball. I think I have 750 drafts, and I think I have 1% of Jonathan Taylor. So he was a guy that I was just not into that situation, the Colts backfield situation this entire offseason. But at some point, he's a very talented back, and we don't know what we don't know. And what we don't know right now with Jonathan Taylor is a whole heck of a lot. So that kind of whole variance piece versus risk-reward profile versus upside range of outcomes discussion at some point in the 7th round kind of makes sense for me. At some point, you kind of just got to take that gamble.
Man, yeah, I wanted to do it like the 4th or 5th round, but then you just hinted at it that we feel like we know, like, okay, he's going to miss 4 games. It could be more than 4 games.
Yeah.
We really don't know how this shit. Maybe the blood will be so bad that they keep him on the PUP list longer than 4 games. All the PUP list means is that it has to be 4 games. It can be longer than 4 games.
Right.
And I feel like maybe that is not being priced in yet. But it's also, if it is just 4 games, you got last year's 1-1 in the mid rounds of your draft, and pretty amazing. And there's going to be times where it is done too early. It was not done too early in this draft. It was time, even with him missing, almost a third of the fantasy regular season. I think it was time to take the Jonathan Taylor plunge. When Mark did, Zach Kruger, how you doing? You're looking very intense. Yeah, very, very dialed in. Let's pull up Zachary's incredible team, your boilerplate Yahoo name. Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Kenny Walker, Javonte Williams, Darren Waller, Michael Pitts, Michael Thomas, Danny Dimes, the Dimesman, the 2 tight end build. It is a 2 flex league. Take us through maybe the thought process behind the 2 tight end build.
The thought process was all the wide receivers are gone. I actually texted Denny after I made the Kyle Pitts pick, and I said, I'm going to be canceled for this decision. But what ended up really happening here, and as we see, is I'm on the clock, and Denny takes Jalen Warren. Thank you for that, Denny.
No problem, man.
I did not have him in my queue. I appreciate that. But as far as the Kyle Pitts selection goes, pardon me while I make this pick. As far as the Kyle Pitts selection goes, there were a lot of receivers off the board. I kind of knew what I was eyeing up later on down the line at quarterback. And with all the receivers gone, running backs essentially not the way I wanted to go after having Kenneth Walker and Javonte Williams already in my little running back stable of mine. I decided to go with Pitts, whose range of outcomes is anywhere from an elite tight end to a complete and total flop. And in my flex spot, after having Higgins, Justin Jefferson, and DK Metcalf, I felt like I could kind of find a way to mix things up a little bit with that flex option when you compare Pitts' ceiling and some of the wide receivers who were in that range. So I went with Pitts in the flex. If he's elite, then it's going to hopefully pay off there. And then on top of that, I'm pulling off a potentially elite tight end off the board for someone else to have. I like Pitts a lot this year. I'm hoping that we see a little bit of a rebound, just based on some of the numbers I was looking at earlier on him this year, that I think are spelling possibly good things for Kyle Pitts in Atlanta in 2023.
You hit at a few interesting facts there. The receivers just get devoured early. So you basically start trying to hunt for major values later on. Like guys who maybe haven't just fallen like a few picks, but maybe sometimes guys who have fallen a few rounds because of the receiver hunger. Like there can be people who fall literally 2 rounds from ADP. When the receiver mania kicks in. That has been happening in this draft. I was going to try to get in on the action and take Chig Okonkwo as a second tight end. He did just go to Scott Pianowski, so now I might do the exact opposite and take Ezekiel Elliott, where not an unknown upside pick. It's a floor pick, and we're hoping
you are in on Zeke.
No, don't say that. First off, you're not allowed to defame me anymore. I think this has been very well established by our legal counsel.
Well, I've never seen someone so excited about draft taking you. You're hammering Zeke every time I draft.
What's the 11th round? Anybody else hear about this? Would we rather have 8 touchdowns from Ezekiel Elliott, or would we rather have Michael Gallup? Would we rather have Alan Lazard? Would we rather have DJ Shark, Jonathan Mingo? Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, is this really like the receiver sickness like really taking this much hold, Denny?
Yeah, I mean it does. I don't know, just on moral grounds. I'm fine.
You can say it's on religious grounds. It is a religion, the receiver religion.
Right. By the way, I'm feeling very insecure with you looking nice, all dressed up, and I'm wearing my grass cutting outfit.
Well, you showed up the other day to the fantasy football happy hour wearing a blazer, and so I had to try to get you back. And I did just take Ezekiel Elliott. I know, Mark, where are you at on Zeke? You're a volume drafter. You're a game theory based drafter. Is Zeke just like a horrible pick, no matter the round?
I think so. We're gonna go with yes.
Cut his mic.
One.
Cut his mic.
Yeah. I gotta go, guys. See you. That's fun.
No, I mean, what's the Zeke counter case? Just truly zero upside because there is no upside. I'm just like hoping the floor is high enough. Give us the negative Zeke case.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a need for that role in the offense that he's going into. I mean, New England, obviously they're moving on from Damian Harris, who scored a bunch, 15, 16, 17 touchdowns. I forget the exact number, just 2 seasons ago. The problem is we expect a low volume overall offense. We've seen over the last 2 seasons a low efficiency offense. That means fewer trips to the red zone, fewer goal line carries, et cetera, et cetera. While we like to think that he has this solid floor, I don't know. I think that might be being overstated this season. Just when you look at kind of the composition of that team and what we expect from them. I mean, like, what was it? 60% of their wins last year came when their defense scored a defensive touchdown. So right. Yeah,
so it's that low.
Right. Yeah. So this is not a team that's looking to be overly efficient this season. And I don't really have too much excitement from that situation as a whole, really.
Well, I don't know if you heard, they have an actual offensive coordinator now.
Yes.
They have an actual offensive coordinator coordinating their offense. It seems like that's all I'm based on. They have now an actual offensive coordinator, so it's Zeke season. I think it's pretty simple.
That JMO snipe.
Is he? Is Zeke going to play offensive line? You think, or just?
He actually
is center. Yeah.
You joke. No, it's the right guard.
I mean, they don't want him. He's looking thick, is what I'm saying.
Oh, come on, man. You're commenting on the player's appearance a lot this year. Everyone's short. Everyone's thick. What's going on here, Denny? I've heard you call half the league short. I'm like, I don't know. He's 6'2". The guy who's short.
I only call like 5 guys short. Too short. If you're quarterback and you're short, you shouldn't be playing quarterback. Simple as that.
I don't know, Denny. What should I do here? Where is there any upside left? I mean, I feel like the only upside now is left at like the really like late round receiver flyers, and it's like a little too early for the really late round receiver. Like kind of like the Cedric Tillman zone. Well, John Daigle just took Jaden Reed. I feel like that's kind of getting into. Is Jaden Reed in the Cedric Tillman zone, or is his like expected target share higher?
I think he's better.
What has been behind the Jaden Reed? I think it's some of the preseason usage. What has been behind the Jaden Reed surge the past few weeks, Denny Carter?
I mean, I think it's a little overstated because I don't really see a scenario where he's on the field for 2 receiver sets. Like they're gonna have to be in 3 receiver sets for him to be out there, which is fine. I just like this whole thing about like Jaden Reed is going to eventually be like the 1B, I guess. I just think that that's very presumptuous. And actually, Romeo Doubs, I took Doubs here as my wide receiver, like 6 or something. And, he was good last year. Like besides when he was hurt and when he fell out of favor with Rodgers, he was actually pretty good.
Besides all that, Mrs. Lincoln, of course. I just made the worst pick of the entire draft.
Yeah, who'd you take?
It was not an auto draft. But I feel like there's just nothing left. I feel like receiver is a graveyard, and I wanted to start taking the true dart throws because I feel like I'm just going to be dropping all these players basically from round 12 beyond in this draft. I took the Cardinals' #1 receiver, Michael Wilson. You may have heard of him.
I mean, that's fine.
Do you think is Michael Wilson going to be an every snap player, Denny, or anyone? I'll open this up to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have thoughts,
do we have any Michael Wilson stands here, Zach? I saw you nodding your head.
Not a Michael Wilson stand, but I feel like it is trending in that direction, possibly for the 2 wide receiver sets. I'd have to look a little bit more closely at it, but obviously we know Marquise Brown is in there, Rondale Moore probably in the slot, and the hype that Wilson has been getting. I don't know what the Cardinals are doing, which is I think a common theme on Twitter right now. No one really knows what the Cardinals are doing.
Josh Dobbs season. It's pretty simple.
Well, Josh Dobbs season, certainly something to get excited about. But why wouldn't the Cardinals take a look at as much as they have available to them to see what they might have heading into 2024? Michael Wilson was a relatively strong prospect coming out of Stanford, I believe it was. Someone who didn't necessarily benefit from the play style that they had there. Wasn't exactly a compiler in college, but we knew he was a guy who could potentially show out if given an opportunity to in a more pro style offense. And we're struggling to call the Cardinals a pro team in 2023, but it is supposed to be a pro style offense. And why not put him out there with the offensive coordinator and a quarterback who's going to be slinging around probably 40 to 50 times a game since we expect them to be trailing a lot, and just see what happens. From a volume standpoint, there could be something there with Michael Wilson this season at some point.
Rumors are spreading that the Arizona Cardinals are a real team. It's almost time to usher this group out. Mark, I want to end this discussion with you and 2 pretty interesting picks, Dalton Kincaid, Rashad Penny. 2 guys were kind of like the narrative has been all over the map all summer. Like, Dalton Kincaid could be the Bills' #2 weapon. Dalton Kincaid, rookie tight end. Dalton Kincaid, 1 good game in college, Denny kept bringing up. Rashad Penny, he could be cut. He could be the starter. Your thought process on these 2, like, really wide range of outcome players.
Yeah, when we start getting into these bench type players, I like to look at them through the lens of an upside only. Like, what is the best case scenario that leads to their upside? And for a guy like Dalton Kincaid, it's like, yeah, he is playing 30, 40% of his snaps from the slot. He is this big slot kind of mismatch type guy. And with Tyler Higbee, and goes into like just the composition of the roster, with Tyler Higbee, I have the volume tight end to allow that to play out. If it doesn't work out, just cut him midseason. It's all good. If it works out and he is, playing 40, 45% of his slot snaps and he is utilized as this weapon in the red zone, I'll go like now I can start playing him over Tyler Higbee. On Rashad Penny, yeah, it's like I'll know after 4 or 5 weeks what he is to this offense. If he's the 2-down grinder, great. Like I got that behind the best offensive line in the league. If not, then he's just becomes roster fodder and we send him off to the waivers.
Yeah, I hate this pick I'm about to make. I actually wish I was just like alone and not on camera when this pick is announced here.
To hide in your shame, huh?
It was Keontae Ingram. I took another Arizona Cardinal, and
hey, that's good process in my opinion.
Yeah, you've got a type here.
I do have a type. I love players on the worst offense in the league.
Yeah.
It's just a full-on James Conner hedge where he's appeared in more than 13 games, 1 time in the past 5 years. A team going nowhere, a team that might want to see what it has in a younger player in Keontae Ingram. Not an elite prospect, but basically hoping. I think he might have I think he might have touches not just like later in the season, but like a bigger than expected role early in the season. I don't know why this team would be like 3 down James Conner at this point, unless they like truly want to compete this year, which I don't think they do. I think James Conner's touches could be way on the decline, and I'm taking. And again, if Keontae Ingram is like a healthy scratch week 1, or if he has like 4 touches, I just immediately cut him.
I will say I would lean Tajay Spears over a guy like Ingram because
contingency value. I hear him.
Listen, I'm not making bets against Derrick Henry. Okay, I would never do such a thing. I have not been doing that since 2016. but I will say Tajay Spears might be Jamal Charles, and I want Jamal Charles on my team.
Well, Mark, really good stuff. Zach, really good stuff. Really good stuff off camera this week. Rocking final cuts, dominating final cuts, while Denny and I were off gallivanting about and being on podcasts and having makeup applied.
Drinking champagne.
Yes,
I just took my makeup off. My Joker makeup I just took off actually for the show.
Well, Denny and I were sipping champagne in Stamford, Connecticut. Mark Garcia at HILOW on Twitter, correct, Mark? Hilo
FF, yep.
Hilo FF on Twitter, sorry. And at ZK_FFB, correct, Zach, on Twitter?
Yes, sir.
Two extremely hard workers, 2 extremely smart fantasy football analysts. Yep. They do amazing work for us. Really good stuff on Twitter. They're having better drafts than me. Give them a follow. Mark and Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Denny
gets to stay. Kyle Dvorak gets to come back. We get to round out the end of this draft.
Kyle.
Is DJ Short joining us or not, Steven? Can DJ take the heat? Has he decided?
I don't think he can.
I don't think he can. I'm back on the clock. And man, I didn't like save up any like late round flyers. So I'm just like,
you're going to take Shaheed. You love Shaheed.
I thought he already went. I actually was going to take him. I'm getting even more crazy. Go, Kyle.
Pat, did you ask? Like, obviously, I'm not backstage while the show's going on. I'm doing my draft. Did you ask Denny if he had a stroke and got somehow 2 running? Okay, so what was the explanation? If you don't mind us repeating it real quick.
Yeah, it's the explanation is that he's just trying a new brand, but he's claiming it's for non.
Wait a second, guys. Maybe you've heard of the strategy. It's called playing the best plays. Maybe try it sometime.
I don't ever do that. Actually, I drafted Zeke.
He's fully rebranded.
He's full. I'm gonna get some upside. I'm getting that every expert tells you to draft 2 tight ends.
Yes,
they do. But I don't love David Njoku. I'm taking Greg Dulcich as a second tight end.
I think the most destabilizing thing in the entire industry is if I don't start a draft with 7 receivers.
It is. It was very.
It was specifically destabilizing for you to have Jamar Chase on the board and not take him. That was. The rest of it, like quarterback, I get, I got what you did for the rest. You got a stack, which is pretty fun. You even went tight end to really get the stack. Having Chase on the board and going CMC for you, it's not, I would go Chase as well, but especially for you, I baby barfed.
Denny spent the entire summer too joining me and truthing Brock Purdy. And yet now he's all in on the 49ers offense.
I know, but that doesn't, wait a second. That doesn't mean that I don't think Brock Purdy can dump it off 12 times a game to CMC. I think he can do that.
You think he can?
I'm pretty sure anybody can.
Well, anything can happen. His coach, Kyle Shanahan, has told us the sun could explode tomorrow.
I mean, look. Brock Purdy is, whether he's in the NFL or USFL in 2 years, he can get the ball to CMC.
Good God.
What is that? Is it too much?
No, it was a little much, to be honest. He's like national hero Brock Purdy, and you just call him
Brock, if you're listening.
Sorry if you're triggered, but DJ Short, longtime Rotoworld baseball writer, current and going to be longtime in Rotoworld management. He's in management
now. Yeah. Well, I thought this was a 2024 fantasy baseball draft, so I was misled, but I participated.
DJ, he's a baseball guy, but he's also a longtime Commanders sicko, and he's a football fan.
Sicko is the appropriate word.
He's also a draft guide hawker. Tell the people real quick some facts about our draft guide.
Oh, it's constantly updated. It has lots of great stuff in there. We've added a couple of features this week. Shyway 25 went live earlier this week. We have our leveraging the default rankings as well, comparing our rankings with that of NFL.com, Yahoo, to uncover some values throughout the course of your draft. We use Yahoo today. We love Yahoo, but there are some advantages you can gain from reading our draft guide. So go ahead and check it out today. We had it updated with all the news coming out of this week. So lots of good stuff if you're drafting this weekend. And go to rotoworld.com. I had a Rotoworld hat on earlier. I sleep in all Rotoworlds and NBC Sports gear, and it's almost bedtime. So.
We've been trying to get Denny to do it. We said Denny could keep his job if he would sleep in all Rotoworld gear, and yet he refused.
Okay, I'm not messing with you guys. I've actually been sleeping in my red Rotoworld T-shirt, so it's not a joke.
Oh, there you go. Denny dreams.
Contractually obligated to do so.
That's true. I'm sorry. I just wanted to confirm.
Denny dreams in Rotoworld, but yeah, a lot of really, really good stuff in the draft guide. Again, DJ, he tries to be a baseball guy, but he's actually a secret football guy. People might think I'm a baseball guy when I keep my final 3 picks were Cedric Tillman, Keontae Ingram, and Mike Wilson were 3 of my final 4 picks. I'm not washed, Kyle, because all I'm doing is drafting young players with insane upside, but am I like blinded by I don't even know by what. What am I doing with all these upside picks who I might have to cut immediately?
Yeah, I mean, most of this range is guys that you have to feel comfortable cutting, though. That's the point of this, is there are a lot of flyers. If you hit on one, if Michael Wilson is like a solid PPR guy,
I will never hit on a flyer.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, but hypothetically, we're talking theory here. We're just in the ether. Hit on one of these guys, 100%. Literally cut all the other ones, because that would be a good hit rate, is getting one of these guys through. And they're not bad picks. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Can I tell you something, Kyle? And this is just a reminder. Theory can only take you so far.
So Denny saw one movie. NBC Universal's Oppenheimer, and he can't stop talking about it. And
not the Mario Brothers movie?
Not the Mario Brothers.
It's on Peacock. So
it is. Listen,
again, all NBC products all the time.
Can't stop watching it.
Mario Brothers is putting our kids through college. Oppenheimer's putting our grandkids through college. It's been a big year at the box office for NBC Universal, folks.
Sure.
I don't know if you've heard. We had some Bafo blockbuster box office here with our drafts. I'm looking at the Yahoo projected standings, a favorite pastime after a draft is over. Patrick Daugherty projected for 10th. You may think there's no way anyone on the screen could be lower. Denny Carter projected for 11th. Kyle Dvorak projected for 1st. Kyle's the Zoomer. He's running laps around his boomer elders. Kyle, take us through your team. Take us through your thoughts. Do you agree that you have the best team?
Of course I agree. What type of question is that? I smoked you guys.
Well, take us through it. Take us through what Yahoo has deemed the best team. By the way, we love Yahoo. Yahoo is really sharp, by the way, default rankings. They work really, really hard on those. Again, you can find differences in them with our rankings, as we did in our leveraging the default rankings. The Yahoo pre-ranks are so good. It makes I feel like no one ever falls. And so I was kind of felt off my back foot for a lot of this draft. But Kyle, you're projected for 1st. Tell us about your team.
And the best part is that we're not playing this out. So I just won. The thing is, I just won the league.
That is true. That is.
I mean, I actually really like the format you set up: full PPR, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flex spots. It is completely a race to the flex spot, and it is mostly a race to get receivers in there. Because Daigle was talking about this 4th, 5th, 6th kind of round, probably more 3rd, 4th, 5th round, that we want to be drafting the receivers there. And he's 100% right. They're going to project for more points. They're going to outscore the running backs. So I went with 4 wide receivers to start: AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Christian Watson, and then pivoted hard to running back just as we started to get into that range. But I felt pretty strong about having 4 and getting receivers in 3rd and 4th. I think maybe the only thing I would change is swapping out one more of my running backs for another receiver to try and really beat you guys to the punch at flex. But other than that, basically getting through your wide receivers as quickly as possible and getting to the flex is probably why I'm projected for the most points.
Denny, I mean, we know we do different builds a lot of times, or you do like kind of like positional based building. I am always like a moth to the flame for like young upside picks. It works better in baseball, where like a lot of times the young upside players, you at least know they're going to play. A lot of these guys, I have no idea if Cedric Tillman's going to play. I have no idea if Keontae Ingram is going to play.
Right.
I kind of know if Michael Wilson's going to play. It's a tough road to hoe in fantasy football, but I did it. I'll talk about my team in a second, but just give us the final thoughts on your team, which again, for you, we've been joking about all night, but like it is seriously like an unorthodox build for you who been drafting with you all summer, and it's usually 3 receivers right off the bat. Just give us the final thoughts on your team.
Yeah, no, and you know, I mean, I had to scramble at wide receiver. Right? You know, there's no two ways about that. And you know, I hope to hit on some rookies. I have Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison in my flex spots. You know, hopefully at least one of those guys, you know, has some upside. I guess the projections, my projections are probably hurt quite bad by Alvin Kamara. And again, not a guy I've targeted. I actually don't think I've drafted Alvin Kamara since like the spring in best ball. Okay. Like once maybe. But what happened here is I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but Kamara fell like 2 rounds after where he usually goes.
He really, he sank like a stone in this one.
Right. And I mean, Jamal Williams was about to go before him.
Went in the ninth round, by the way. 1 pick after Daniel Jones. No offense to Zach. But. Yeah,
and look, so here my thought process was this on Kamara. I took CMC in the first round. I had not taken a running back since. Okay, and that was the plan. You know, if I make that sacrifice and take a running back in the first, I'm not going to even look at running back until 8th, 9th, 10th round. And so that's what I did, and I did not expect Kamara to be there. So I feel good about taking. He's out for a month. I get it. Hopefully Derek Carr, continues his check down sort of ways in New Orleans, and I think Kamara and CMC could be a fun little PPR duo at running back.
I have one of my least favorite teams I've drafted almost all summer, to be honest. I started with Tyreek Hill.
Well, you're hosting, so you know.
True. Yeah, that's because I was hosting. Yeah. I actually had so much. I had plenty of time to pick. It wasn't even hard. And I made a lot of picks I didn't love, but I started with Tyreek Hill. Started with Josh Jacobs in the second. And we've talked a lot lately about Josh Jacobs in the third. That was great. Josh Jacobs in the second, more uncertain. And then I got Calvin Ridley, which was kind of a Josh Jacobs-based pick because like I took Josh Jacobs and like locked in the touches supposedly in the second round. But then I really cost myself upside opportunity, or at least more guaranteed upside opportunity receiver. So I went with more like the theoretical upside of Calvin Ridley, who has been an alpha all summer by every indication, has a true alpha season on his resume, a 1,500-yard season, one of the best route tacticians in the entire NFL, but he hasn't played football in 2 years. So it's a very, very high variance pick. And then I made Tyler Lockett, who's not a high variance pick, the 4th round. I just didn't love my start, but I did like getting Isaiah Pacheco as my RB2. I do like, despite not loving like the way some of my starting lineup looks, they are like legit starters. And in my flex spots, I ended up with Mike Williams and Rachaad White, which I do really like a lot. The Chargers offense, this time it counts, by the way, a rocket ship. Kellen Moore is coming in for Joe Lombardi. He's about as big of an upgrade as you could possibly get. Just in terms of play calling, but play design, play sequencing. We're just expecting, maybe Mike Williams for once in his life won't have to win a hand fight to get a catch. And he might actually catch a ball over the middle of the field. And then Rachaad White, where I was talking about Scott Pianowski, we were talking about how the 3-down backs don't exist in the mid rounds of drafts anymore, except for, maybe Rachaad White, who, again, no one really, we like Sean Tucker, but like no one made a meaningful push this summer for touches behind Rachaad White. And it's a little strange, his ADP, like never got more rocket fuel. I thought maybe it's not because he's in such a bad offense, but I do actually like my starting lineup. I took Juju Smith-Schuster and Zeke. Both like for usage purposes. It was actually it was tough to do. I think honestly it was because I was hosting. It was because I was hosting.
I gave you that excuse.
Yeah, but so then I overcompensated for the boring floor veterans with all these young players.
With all these Arizona Cardinals.
I know. What were you going to say, Denny?
I mean, you love Bill O'Brien, is what we're hearing.
I do. I love Bob. We love Bob. We've all the football guys that have just been talking nonstop. DJ, baseball guy, shadow football guy, and our boss. We love the team. It's freaking incredible, man. I've never seen a team this good.
Great. I mean, you guys are the experts. So I'm reading all of your stuff to make my picks.
Yeah, it's how did we guide you this summer with your team?
I was gonna say DJ's draft is just a reflection of the content we've put out.
True.
If we don't like it, that's ultimately on us.
It's very true.
Well, I said to Pat earlier today, we were texting because I drafted a team last night, and actually I took Fields and that as my quarterback in that draft. I just happened to end up with them again here, but I feel like everything that I'm doing now is just osmosis of what I've read and what I've heard on our podcasts. And I mean, that's how people learn. That's how the normal people learn. So you're getting a peek into that. I will say I usually check like my homerism at the door. I think that's part of like working in fantasy for as long as we have. So usually I'm not like, oh, I gotta, grab a Commander, or I'm also a Mets fan because I hate myself. And I'm not going out of my way to draft New York Mets, but Terry McLaurin, if anybody fell, I feel like he fell a little bit with sort of uncertainty about the turf toe. I don't know if he's going to be ready week 1, but I feel like I'm probably going to be pretty happy about that when it's all said and done.
I know I like McLaurin. I have him in a couple of my most important leagues. I'm nervous about that toe injury because, man, those toe injuries, we've talked about this, they linger. And, I feel like Jahan Dotson is there to just gobble up that wide receiver 1 role if McLaurin's not 100%. I'm a little queasy there.
Turf toe is one of those things where all the Twitter doctors on average it's 2.7 weeks. And I'm like, it's crazy that none of them have ever come under 6 weeks then. I don't know where you're pointing numbers from. These incidents, I swear to God, are the worst.
The thing with turf toe is it lingers, but they play through it all the time. The problem is that they're diminished a lot when they play through it.
Yes,
I think he probably will be ready for week 1 because it's a debilitatingly painful injury, but it's just not painful enough that you can play through it. So I do think he's going to play. I think the most important data point for me with Terry McLaurin is that it wasn't quite like the Kenny Pickett drumbeat with Sam Howell, but he was he had a box checking camp where it basically seemed like Sam Howell did everything the coaching staff wanted to do and then some, where they were openly admitting, oh yeah, I should have played him more last year. Really impressing the Commanders assembled media. Some teams have really shill based press corps. The Commanders do not. After 2 decades of an adversarial relationship with Daniel Snyder, it's not a homerism. A Commanders press corps. They were really impressed with Sam Howell, and that kind of made me more comfortable gambling on Terry McLaurin's toe. Just that it seemed like Sam Howell is maybe looking more like the guy who was a potential first-round pick in 2020 in college, and not the guy who fell to day 3, or was it day 2? I can't remember. I think it was day 3. I believe it was the 5th round. I think Terry McLaurin is a really good gamble to take. He's going to play. Maybe he'll be hurt, but hopefully for the first time in 5 years, he has actual quarterback.
I mean, if you're in on this Washington offense improving, having more explosive plays, which is something they lacked severely last year, then necessarily you have to be in on McLaurin. Those two things can't happen without each other. McLaurin has to be part of that. Dotson has to be part of that. I don't know. I'm just tilting my face off about not having any Dotson. I feel like Dotson is a really good pick right now.
Curious, Denny, his whole brand is tied up in receivers, and yet there's a receiver he didn't get.
By the way, before I go, NBCsports.com/draft guide. You can use our code CHAMP23, 20% off at checkout, and you receive a $10 Fanatics gift card. So very good stuff here. Get our draft guide, be updated as long as there's drafts happening. So still a few days for you to get your draft in. And please draft on Yahoo, our good buddies over there. But good stuff, guys. Great show.
Yeah, and we're going to be updating through the weekend. Hopefully there's not much reason left to update. It used to be tonight. Used to be the final night of the preseason. This final Thursday in August, there would be a fourth preseason game, and you'd still get some weird injuries. Hopefully, there's nothing left to update this weekend. Some teams will begin practicing for week 1 this weekend. We will update anything if it happens, but we worked on it all spring. We worked on it all summer. We're very proud of it. Please check it out. Please check out all of our other mock drafts. We've got a lot of video mocks. We've got a lot of written mocks. We've had a lot of great guests. That includes tonight. Thank you so much to our guests, Scott Pianowski of Yahoo, Ian Harditz of Fantasy Life, John Daigle of 4for4, and, of course, everyone in-house. Our team has been doing such good stuff all year. So for Kyle Dvorak, for Denny Carter, for Douglas Short, I am Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much for joining us, and keep it locked to Rotoworld.com.